Tech Bite Tips.
Welcome to another Tech Bite Tips video. In this video we're going to be talking about setting up QBitTorrent as a torrent client in our NAS so that we can download torrents. If you're not familiar with it, torrents are a way of sharing files. It's a peer-to-peer type of file sharing. So basically when you have a file and you become part of a torrent, you download parts of the file and you share those parts of the files that you have to other people that want to share those files too. So we're going to be setting up QBitTorrent in our NAS so that we can become part of the pool of people that are receiving and sharing those files. So let's get to it. Welcome again. In our previous video we set up a ZBD to download from Usenet. In this video we are going to install QBitTorrent but using a VPN to secure our connection from snooping from our ISP or any other malicious actor that might want to see what we're doing on the internet. As you can see, we currently have only one container and we are going to look for QBitTorrent but with a VPN. Sadly though, there is no image from Linux server for this, so we have to rely on other images from other people. I've noticed that Marcus McNugan has a pretty stable and pretty used image that a lot of people rely on, so we're gonna download the image from him, the latest version. We select that and we just wait for it to download from Docker Hub. It's a short image, a small image, so it should take a short time to download to our NAS. So we just give it a little bit of time. Okay, the image has completely downloaded. It's 301 megabytes. It's not that bad. So now we can just select it and click launch. We're just gonna leave it as it is. Go next. The first thing we're gonna do is rename this to something that we can understand a little better, like QBitTorrent VPN. That is pretty self-explanatory. We're going to enable resource limitation because we don't want this container to grab all the resources. We enable auto restart and we go into the advanced settings. Here it's a very important thing that we need to keep in mind. Since we are using a VPN, we're gonna have to put more environment variables than we are used to putting. So in this case we need to add our usual 3, which are the time zone. In this case I'm gonna use Eastern time zone. Our process user ID, which is 10,026, and the group ID, which is usually 100. But that's not it. We need to add more variables in here. So we're gonna add, for the VPN connection, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different environment variables. The first one that we're gonna put is if the VPN should be enabled, so that should be a resound yes, we want the VPN to be enabled. The next one is the VPN username. That's gonna be the username for our VPN provider, so we're gonna put our username here, and then the VPN password for our provider, we put that in there. Then the LAN network, in this case you put the local area network subnet. And in my case, for example, I'm going to use the 10.0.0/24 because that's my LAN network. And then additionally I'm going to specify the name servers for this container, and we're going to use the Google and the OpenDNS. So that should be it. Then we need to add 2 additional environment variables. One of them is for the web user interface, where we're going to see that, and for QBitTorrent, it's usually 8080, so we're gonna leave it at 8080. We have already switched SAB and ZBD to 8081, so we don't have a conflict there. And also we need to specify the incoming port for our QBitTorrent connection, so we can do something like 6881, which is the usual port for the torrent, QBitTorrent. So we say yes after we validate that everything here is correct. We say save, and then in here we go next, and then we make sure that the port 8080, which is the web user interface, maps to 8080, and then this container by default tries to open the QBitTorrent connections in port 8999, so you could then put the one that we specified before here to be exposed, or we can go back and change that here in the advanced settings to put the 8999, however you like it. Let's just leave it as it is, 8999. And these TCP and UDP ports, you might have to open them on your router if you have any issues with connecting. Then we go next, and then we're going to specify the folders that we're going to use for our downloads, etc. First thing, we go into the configs and we notice that we don't have a folder for QBitTorrent, so we create a new one, QBitTorrent VPN, and then we select that one. Additionally, we're going to select the downloads completed and the downloads incomplete torrents, and also the downloads torrents and ZBs. So the first one is going to be mapped to the /config inside our container. This one is going to be mapped to our /downloads, the other one to /incomplete, and the other one to /torrents inside our container. We then select next, and we check that all the information that we provided is accurate, and we make sure that that's selected, and we click done. Now it is going to create that container and it's going to run it soon. There we go, it's running, and we can see that now we have 2 containers running in our NAS. We can then select QBitTorrent VPN, and here we're going to probably see some issues. First issue here is we go to the logs and it says VPN enabled, defined as yes, but there's no open VPN configuration file in the config OpenVPN folder. So that's the first thing that we need to make sure. If we are using the VPN, we need certain files to be in the config QBitTorrent OpenVPN, and here there's some files that we don't have. Those files you usually get from a VPN provider, so we need to get those. They're usually along the lines of give me 1 second, should be a RSA certificate. It should be a RSA PEM file, and also a .ovpn file. So those are the 3 main ones that you need, and you can also create a conf file that contains your username and password for the VPN if you don't specify it in the environment variables. So that's something that we would need to do. If we come here, then we would need to add those files. Let me get a copy of those files to put them in there. 1 second. Okay, so here we have the files that I was mentioning. For example, here's an OpenVPN file that connects to United States, specifically the Washington DC area. And there's also the PEM, which is a certificate with a strength of 4096, and a certificate here for RSA with a 4096 strength also. And then here's the credentials file. if you don't specify your VPN credentials in the environment variables, you just have a file that has your username and your password, and that should get you going. We need to copy those files into the directory that the container specified. So let's go ahead and go in here and upload, and we're gonna look for those files here, and we're gonna move those in there. So now that we have all our files, then we should be good to continue to the next step. Let us then stop this container and restart it and see if we get any other errors. We probably might get another one, so let's see what we see. Okay, at least we didn't get that error from before. If we see, we have more lines, and it says that here's where we restarted, and it found the configuration files. Okay, and it specified all the details, and then started the Open VPN, and it says that our credentials configuration file is accessible by others, so that could cause problems. So you can limit the permission for that so that it doesn't give you that problem. But then it was able to actually connect to the VPN. As you can see, we received an address, and then here we got a message saying the authorization failed because I specified another credentials that are not valid. So let me fix that. Okay, I have fixed that. So let's start the QBitTorrent again and look at the logs. Okay, more entries. Okay, and here's the error that I wanted. Now we don't see that error that says that the credentials are wrong. So the problem that we have now is that the tunnel, the network tunnel, it had issues with opening that connection tunnel. It does happen with several versions of the Synology system if you're running it on another machine or a virtual machine, but this is an easy error to fix. So what you do is, first of all, let's stop this. Let us get out of here. It's stopping, so let's give it time. Alright, now it's stopped. The thing we have to do is we have to go into the control panel, we have to go into network, and here in the network interface we need to create a VPN profile. Why? For some reason the container cannot create the tunnel network interface. We could, in theory, give it administrative rights, but we usually don't want to do that because that's, you want to run the containers with the least privilege all the time. So what we do is we create that interface manually here, and then it should be able to just use it. So we say using OpenVPN by importing a file, next, and then we say VPN. And then here you would put your username and your password, and then you specify the VPN file here, and then the certificate file, and click next. So done, and this will create that VPN that we need. So the container should now be able to connect. Now there's another thing that I want to show because it might fail still. So let's start the VPN, the QBitTorrent, and go back into the logs and see if we still get that error. Okay, attempting to connect, initiated the connection, and here we go. It still says it cannot use that. So if you see that error, it just means that you have to connect manually first and then use the QBitTorrent. So let's stop QBitTorrent and let's connect manually here first, and that'll solve the problem for us. Okay, this has stopped, so let's go and connect manually. So we select it here, and we then select the connect button here, and then you would see that the VPN is going to try to connect to our VPN provider, and we just need to see that it connected. Once we see connected and we see some IP address assigned, then we just disconnect, and that'll make sure that that tunnel is working. And now when we go back into our QBitTorrent and we start it, we should see that now it is able to use that tunnel that we created manually. Okay, now we were able to connect and everything is looking good. We got an IP from the VPN, and it tells us that the daemon was successfully started, so QBitTorrent should be accessible now in our interface. We don't need this, we can get out of here, and then we can go here and we should be greeted by the QBitTorrent login. So that should be good for us. I think the password was admin, and that is true. Username admin and password admin, and we have QBitTorrent running with a VPN. Perfect. Now that we have QBitTorrent running, we can go ahead and configure it. So to configure QBitTorrent, we can click here on the gear icon, which is the options, and then we will start making changes here to change the configuration of how the application behaves. And the first thing that I would change here is the torrent management mode. I would make that automatic. We want to relocate the torrent whenever the category is changed, and we want to also make sure that they relocate the affected torrents to change the default safe path, and the category safe path is changed. And then here we need to make sure that the default safe path is actually the downloads folder that we specify that contains our downloads that have been completed, but then we want to keep the incomplete torrents in the /incomplete directory. So that's going to be another change that we make. And then in the part here where we monitor downloads, we're going to put the default save location first is downloads, and we're gonna add another one for the monitor folder, which is the torrents that we created. So if we drop a torrent in the torrents folder, it's gonna automatically add it to QBitTorrent, and by default we're gonna save to the downloads folder. And let's see, I think that's basically all that I have to change in this tab, so let's save that. Let's go back again. Let's go to the connection tab. We want to use TCP and micro TP, so that's fine. We're going to use a 6881 port that we specified before, so we leave that as it is. And then here, depending on your connection, you would tweak the connection limits. I have a pretty good connection, so I could probably pump this up to 1000 here. To be the maximum number of connections, and then connections per torrent, it's okay to leave it at 100, and then global maximum number of upload slots 20 is fine for me, and then maximum upload slots per torrent, we can put that as a 5 maybe. And here's an important thing that we're gonna touch on later in another section. The proxy server, it's something that we will have a separate section to talk about this. So for now we're just gonna skip it and save that. Go back again into the speed. What we can do here, if you want to limit the amount that you want to share, like the speed at which you want to share, you could do that here. For example, you could specify that your maximum upload speed is 200 kilobytes. Depending on your connection also. If you have a 0, it means unlimited, so downloads is unlimited. And you also have the option here to have an alternate rate limit. That's if you trigger that on a specific time, or you can also do it manually. But for now, that's mainly the thing you want to change. If you want to change the global rate limit, and this is good with this too. So then we save that, we go back again. Then when we go into BitTorrent, this talks about how you connect to the BitTorrent network. And by default, this looks right. Allow encryption, that's okay. Torrent queuing, that's about right. So I wouldn't probably change anything here. Maybe you could do something which is, for every torrent that you add, you might want to put like an open tracker. So if you want to add open tracker to all your torrents, you can just select this and put the UDP : / and then the address for open tracker, and then we save that. And then RSS, we don't really need to do anything. The web user interface, yes, we want to make a change here. Let's say that we want to change the username to be something else. So let's put QBitTorrent for the user and password. If you want to bypass the authentication, if you're in the local network, you can use this and then put your network CIDR here, and then it won't prompt you if you're in that network. That's up to you. And here you could enable some security features here by default, that's okay. And if you have a DNS name, you can also do that here, but I'm not going to do any of that, so I'm just going to save it. And then here in the advanced, we don't really need to do anything. So that's basically the main configurations that you need to do to QBitTorrent. The main part is in the downloads tab. That's the most important one. But yep, that is basically it. It should be configured, it should be working. So now if we test it with a torrent, let's look for example for a Ubuntu ISO, or not Linux, any other Linux. Let's see what we can get. Distro watch. Let's get, I don't know, Debian. Some Debian, I guess, would be good. Oh no, let's see if we have Ubuntu here. Okay, Ubuntu. So we get this torrent address. We should be able to just go in here and put the address of that torrent. And then here we don't have any categories or anything yet. So for now, that is going to be it. We can just select download, and then it should start downloading our ISO for the Linux, the Ubuntu desktop version. And as we can see, we have peers, everything is working, the tracker's working, our open tracker was added but it's not contacted yet. So I mean, it's working, that's the main thing. It's downloading pretty fast, so that's good. Our QBitTorrent is working. So that's going to be it for the configuring section.